Thanks so much to all my patrons. Join now to help support the channel and help pick the books that I review. Link in the description. And I am done. Okay, so I just got done listening to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, and I want to give you my unedited thoughts on finishing this book, which was literally just right now. So, it was okay. I've 3 or 4 stars, 3.5. 3.5. It's right in the middle. On my grading scale, a 3 is like, and a 4 is I liked it. So somewhere in the middle there. There were things I liked, there were things I didn't love, nothing I hated, but nothing I really, well, there were some things I loved, but it was a very specific thing. We'll talk about it momentarily. Before moving on quickly, I want to talk to you about the audiobook narrator, and I listened to this. There's several different versions of this. I listened to the Stephen Fry version, and I feel like Stephen Fry did a decent job. Now, I love Stephen Fry, and I love his voice. The problem with Stephen Fry is he's got like one voice, and he's not very good at differentiating between his different voices. They all kind of sound like Stephen Fry, which is fine because I like Stephen Fry's voice. In a story like this that doesn't have a ton of characters, it works. But, I'm not going to get blown away here. And if you were to ever do like an epic fantasy story, I would get lost because it's just all kind of variations of Stephen Fry's voice. But good stuff. I would recommend the Stephen Fry version of this with, know that I have not listened to the other one, so I have no idea, but it was good. So let's quickly talk about the plot, and then we'll talk about my thoughts on it. Although you probably know the plot, because most people have read this before. But very quickly, seconds before Earth is demolished to make way for like a galactic freeway, which is pretty funny. The main character, Arthur, is taken off planet by a friend of his who is actually an alien who is serving as a researcher of Earth for this revised edition of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And this book is pretty much describes everything that ever exists in the universe. Once they leave Earth together, they journey through space and meet fellow space travelers in this zany adventure that just kind of puts a smile on your face. That's the story in a nutshell. Let's start with my positives about this. I have a big one. This is one of the most quotable books that I've ever read. There were so many times that there was a quote that happened that I just smiled at or laughed at or realized that's where it's from because it's been used in pop culture or people use it all the time. Probably more than any book I've read, there were just these individual one-liners that just kind of had my jaw drop at the inventiveness of it, and just made me happy. A couple ones that I particularly liked, and there's way more than this. I probably like more, or some more, but these are the ones that kind of jump off the top of my head. But one of them was make sure I get this right. The ships hung in the sky in the same way that bricks don't. That's good stuff. I've never heard anything like that before. That's really funny. Then there's one that was like, I'll probably botch this, but it's like, that many were of the opinion that they'd all made a big mistake in coming down from the trees in the first place, or the monkeys made a mistake coming down from the first place. And some said that even the trees had made a bad move and that no one should have ever left the oceans. That's good stuff. Really funny. Love these little liners. They happen all the time. There's also the one about that men always assumed that they were more intelligent than dolphins because we achieved so much. And then all the dolphins ever talked about was hanging out in the water and having a good time. But the dolphins actually believed that they were way more intelligent for man for exactly the same reasons. Awesome. Awesome stuff. Kudos to you, Douglas Adams. Now, the problem here is that these quotes and pretty much all of the really good stuff in the book, in terms of like the really funny, quippy stuff, shows up in the first half of the book. The first half of the book is really, really funny. I found myself laughing out loud quite often. But the second half of the book is very plot-driven, which normally I love, but not in a little zany book like this. And it takes a sharp downward turn away from what the things that I felt like made the book great. The humor in the second half of the book was almost entirely rooted in this absurdity of alien life. Alien life that we don't know, coming up with silly names for things and going off on these little tangents about some sort of, interesting diatribe about alien life. And while, this style of humor didn't really resonate with me, I'm highly confident that like a younger version of me would have absolutely gobbled this up. But right now it didn't land. Now, I am a fan of this drier British humor. You know, I am what you would call a Monty Python superfan. I have watched all of Flying Circus about 1 million times. I've watched all the Monty Python movies about 1 million times. I can quote them very, very easily. You know, and on that same note, I find something like Discworld to be the funniest books ever written. But I found that outside of these really wonderful individual quotes, which, again, were really special, the comedy here is like a poor man's version of Discworld. The jokes didn't have the depth to them that something like Discworld has, or something that like Monty Python has, which isn't a bad thing, but it definitely isn't on the same playing field in terms of that like multi-leveled comedy genius that something like Discworld very, very frequently hits. And it's entirely lacking that social commentary and the parody that something like Discworld is a master of. Now, the book did try to do some parodying, and maybe I'm missing more, but it did a lot with like, you know, the tragedy of bureaucracy, but it just didn't feel like on the same level. This book also, I feel like it leans too far into the zany and the silly and the absurdist type of humor that made me disconnect with a lot of the jokes. Now, I'm not trying to put anybody down when I say this, because I truly wish I were in the same boat, but I think this book would have ideally been read for the first time when you're younger. You know, if I were to watch a Monty Python movie for my first time at the age that I am right now, I don't know that I would find it funny. Luckily, I did. And I watched the movies obsessively in middle school when I was, you know, in like 7th grade. And it resonated so much with me then that I can now watch those movies and watch the, you know, Flying Circus TV show. And I love them just as much, if not more, than when I was at that age. You know, it'll just forever have this special place in my heart. I feel this way about a lot of things. I feel this way about a lot of old video games. You know, for example, something like a Mario 64, which, you know, is... it will forever go down as one of the greatest video games of all time for me. I can play it to this day and absolutely love it. Now, my kids who don't have that bias, they would never want to play that because they have the other newer stuff that is more enjoyable to them. They don't find that enjoyment, but it's stuck in my brain and I will always love it. I feel similarly with this book. And I'm a bit saddened that I didn't read this book when I was younger so I could feel the same way. And conversely, I'm also certain there's a great many people who read this in as older readers and loved it. And kudos to you. That's awesome. I wish I were in the same boat. I did enjoy this book, but it wasn't even close to like loving it. And that's a shame. You know, I won't be continuing this series for a couple main reasons. I'd say the first is that I didn't love it. And I do kind of feel like I need to love something, or at least really, really like it, to want to feel compelled to keep going. And that's, and I think that's a me problem because I have so many series that I'm in the middle of that I really can afford to be a little bit more picky in what I like. Now, I'm sure that I'm missing some good stuff by doing that, because a lot of series get better as they go along. But that dovetails into my second reason that I don't really feel like I'm going to keep reading this. And that's because pretty much everybody always says, and the Goodreads and Amazon ratings confirm this, that the book's ratings go down with each installment. Now, there's a lot of problems with trusting something like Goodreads reviews. I don't trust the numbers in Goodreads reviews, let's be clear. But one of the things that I do find Goodreads very helpful in when it comes to reviews is judging books as compared to other books in that series. What you expect to happen is the books to continue to get increased ratings over time. The reason for this is people that don't like the first book will stop reading it. They're not going to read the second book. The only people that read the second book are people that like the first book. So you have this bias in the numbers that should almost guarantee that the numbers are going to go up rather substantially. So when you see books go down over time, that is a problem. That means that people that even like this series feel unanimously that it's not as good as its predecessors. Not a great thing. And so, yeah, not really going to keep reading this. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed that I didn't love this. I am disappointed that I have to let you all down, because when I review and don't give glowing remarks to famous older works, people blast me. And you know what? It's what I get for, you know, having contrary opinions at times, and above all, this driving desire to never cater to anybody other than just what my views are. You know, I do diatribe time. I feel like a lot of people are like this in the book reviewer space, where of course, not everybody's going to like everything. Every single reviewer is going to dislike some major work, or many of them. You'll find these reviewers that like fantasy that will like hate A Song of Ice and Fire, or hate Stormlight Archive, or hate Mistborn, or hate hate First Law. I just happen to record every single book I review, and I read a lot of them, so you get to see a very stark insight into my views. And I also always record a review, even if I like it or not. So I feel like a lot of people just don't record a review if they don't like it, which is totally fine. And, that's the way they do things. I do mine a little bit differently. So you get to see all of my thoughts. It is what it is. I'm sorry, disappointed. What is my thoughts on this book? I do recommend it to people, though. I suspect I'm probably in the non-predominant opinion on this. And it's so short. I mean, this is a very short book. It only took me like 2 or 3 days to read. And that was not reading very fast. Listen, whatever you want to say. That it's easy to breeze through. And especially with the first half being better, in my opinion, than the second half, it jumps in so hot that it's worth it. And maybe you'll fall in love with it. Maybe you'll want to keep reading more. Let me know what you think. And let me know what you think about the next books in the series. Am I missing out? I hope not. I really hope not, but let me know. All right, that's all I got to say about this book. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, a very happy reading to you.
Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons: Anna G, CJ, Doust, Darren, Gregory, JD, Jonathan, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, Orthodoxia, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Tay C, Tahir, Anna, Andra, Blair, Brock, Evan, Harry B, Joe UK, Kat Mick, Michael Sugarman, Philippe, Sky, Wacky, and Zion.
Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.